I first got invited to Uganda, it was because they wanted me to come and do a pastor's conference and crusade. There's a very traditional method in which they do ministry. So basically the idea is a bunch of pastors that are under a bishop or under several bishops. It's pretty much cross-denominationally, but evangelical. They believe what we believe. Though you might get Baptists, you might get Pentecostals, but we're all together. And they want some kind of training to equip the pastors. They all feel really desperate when it comes to needing more training. But while they're there, they also want to do a crusade. And they had just assumed that because you're American, that you have a lot of money. And so you have no problem in also laying out $2,000 to build, because they have to build a stage. They don't have stages already. They don't have OSHA, so they don't care about that stuff. So they're taking, tree limbs and, whacking them up, and then they're building a platform that's 3 feet, 5 feet off the ground, tied together. And then they rent a sound system, and they get their church musicians and stuff, and then they start playing music, and it's quite a spectacle. When it's all said and done, you have an altar call. People put there, they want prayer, pray for them. And then we have no idea where the people got saved. And so Jesus didn't call us to make converts. He called us to make disciples. And there's absolutely no. So here we lay out $2,000 to rent all this equipment, right? And to feed these people following a pastor's conference, and you don't even know what the fruit is if there is any fruit, number one. Number two, you do a pastor's conference, and you spend all this effort and energy teaching, and you're wondering if the pastors are actually applying what they learn. Both are pretty ineffective. When I say to the pastors over there, I'm like, it's impossible to shepherd your flock from the pulpit because you can't examine the sheep. When they're shifting in their chairs, you don't know if it's because they're under conviction of the Holy Spirit or if they got to get up and go pee. You don't know what's going on. And so it's like, how do we do our job? If we're supposed to be shepherds, how do we faithfully do our job at making disciples? It's a question that we have to wrestle with. We might know that we're faithful when Jesus returns. So this was really a commitment call to the pastor saying, I don't want you to go out and teach the German. I want you to be transformed by God using the German yourself. And then as you're transformed by God, then you start making disciples. I don't want more, I use the illustration, let's stop hanging ornaments on dead Christmas trees. You've got to abide in the vine. If you abide in the vine, you bear fruit. But apart from the vine, you can do nothing, right? And so it is so cool because these guys are being transformed. Because most of them have never had theological training, or very little. And the only Bible they have is whatever they've learned to preach. So that means they're not in the whole Bible. They don't know. And so these guys are reading, pastors of many years are reading the Bible for the first time, as I call it, Papa time. Not for sermon prep, but for them to meet with our Papa. I tell them, you're not a pastor. That's not your identity. That's a spiritual gift. God is against us promoting ourselves and lording over people. It's not about position titles. You are God's child. And you need to spend time with your Papa so you can get direction from Him. And then use your spiritual gifts. And if it happens to be shepherding or teaching or evangelism, then faithfully administer those gifts so the body is built up.